Hello and welcome back to Willow Talk. Adam Peacock here. No Hads today. I think he's still on the hill with Mitch Owen, just celebrating the Hobart Hurricanes' success overnight in the Big Bash Final. So we got debutant today. He's going to aim up because he's that good. Sydney Morning Herald cricket writer Tom Decent joins us. Tommy, how are you, mate?
Really well. How are you?
I'm good. Not as good as Hads at the moment. Enjoying life down in Hobart. Hopefully he comes back for later in the week in the episodes. But, mate, what about that Big Bash Final last night? Extraordinary.
Extraordinary. You know, you make 180. I think Galle said in the commentary, like a pretty hard target he thinks for Hobart to chase down. Incorrect. That was extraordinary hitting in all respects. It would have been great to be a punter on the hill there, I reckon, watching that unfold and, with a maiden BBL title up for grabs. It was just a dream result. The guys looked just completely blown away by what they'd witnessed by Mitch Owen. Obviously, 174 off the power play in 4 overs, like just ridiculous batting. Really, really cool.
Yeah, so we're going to review the BBL final in a moment. We're going to hear from Mr. Big Bash himself, really. Adelaide Strikers master blaster Chris Lynn. He'll have his take on what Mitch Owen did last night, and also try and get into his mind what it's like for a batter when they're in that kind of zone that Mitch was in last night, and Chris has been there a couple of times. Might even ask him about that Sean Tate 6 from the Gabba all those years ago. We're going to look ahead to the first test between Australia and Sri Lanka in Galle, and we're going to finish with our Sundries bit to get through there. Now, before we get into it, Tommy, this is the bit of the podcast where we just beat our chest and say how good we are, so bear with me for a moment, if that's cool. We've hit some cool milestones. 10,000 followers on Spotify. I didn't even know you could get 10,000 followers on Spotify, but here we are.
Well played.
Big thanks if you have followed and rated us on Spotify. We're very close to our target of 1,000 Spotify ratings. Current tally, 974. So the aim is 1K by the end of the Sri Lanka series. That's what I'm going to set right now, and we want to match that on Apple Podcasts. So if you listen on there, please follow us, review, and tell your mates. A reminder once again, Instagram, TikTok, wherever else we put out our social clips, send us a DM and we'll get to it on the podcast in due course. But, mate, overall, the Hobart Hurricanes are BBL 14 champions, winning the final by 7 wickets, 35 balls to spare, all set up by that Mitch Owen innings. 100 off 39 balls. That equals the fastest in BBL history. The guys on Fox Cricket obviously were making a big deal with it, with Craig Simmons somewhere in Perth, we presume, or WA, watching on thinking, oh no, my record's going to go. No, it's still there in his name, co-held with Mitch Owen, and finished with 108 of 42 balls, 11 sixes, mate. I think the longest he went without a 6 was 5 balls.
Had 10 in under 10 overs. Like, to put that in perspective, that is just ridiculous. And but you could tell the sign of intent. His first scoring shot's a 6. Nathan McAndrew bowls 5 wides down the leg side, starts poorly. 23 off the first, I think. 40 off 2. Then you think, oh, is he going to keep going with it? Like, surely he's got to stop or hole out or whatever. And as I said, 74 off the first 4 overs. And interestingly, they go from netting 9s to high 6s there in 4 overs. Completely changed the game. I think David Warner spoke after the game about just not knowing how to cope with that. There's just some days in cricket where things come off, and he rode his luck and just decided, you know what, I'm going to be proactive here and not stop. And it just worked so well.
Well, Dave Warner's done that to other teams, so now he knows exactly how it feels, and obviously he's been out there when it has happened to teams he's playing against. It was an extraordinary innings. Mark Waugh said it was the best BBL innings he's seen. So with a guy like this, you just wonder, and again, it was in commentary last night, about what this opens up in terms of immediate opportunities. I don't know. It's maybe too early. We're only literally 12 hours after the match ends, sitting here recording this podcast. But does the agent get involved and start ringing around the IPL franchises to say he's available if you want him? It's whether or not they've got a space is another thing.
I think the agent's number might be floating around some franchises around the world, particularly. Obviously, the IPL timing's not ideal, given that that's already been done, their auction. But I would be stunned if he doesn't get picked up. Like, anyone who watches that, particularly in the biggest scene of all, like, you can do that early in the season, and some clubs, franchises might not notice that, but to do that on the biggest stage, it's extraordinary, and just a really good story. And everyone after the game talked about how in awe they were of him, and his life could change significantly, and a youngish guy too with a big future, and he was so pumped as well when he got that 100 as well.
Yeah, like you obviously follow it day to day. Was he really on the radar much at the start of the season? He's very much on the radar now.
Very much not so. Like a reasonable career thus far. There was a lot of who is this guy? Realistically, and that's not any disrespect, but to do an innings of that magnitude in a final like that was just extraordinary. And wish him all the best and hope he goes well. And there'll be some franchises wanting to pick him up for sure. And whether it becomes just a T20 specialist, I don't know. Maybe he might think this is a line in the sand moment for my career where this is what I can do for good. Like I am, and he knows he's good enough now.
It produced one of those moments which I think over the course of the summer, you can disagree with me here, that the image of the summer was the last wicket at the MCG with all the Australian players around the bat appealing to the umpire, save for Marnus, who was trying to catch the ball and effect a run out at the same time. That's one of my favourite images, like a freeze frame. But last night there were two maybe that stand out. It was when Mitch cleared the rope for probably the 10th time or whatever. They took a shot, and the whole of that oval at Bellerive Ninja Stadium now was just up on their feet. And retrospectively, there's an image that's dropped now with Mitch from a few years ago on the hill doing the same thing. And then with the last runs, there were the winning runs, Benny McDermott playing that lap sweep. And he immediately flips the bat over his head knowing it's gone for 4. Even before I think it's cleared the fielder's head, he's run off in one direction and Matty Wade's like down on his knees. That as well with the hill going off. Which one of those three do you reckon stands out the most?
The Matt Way one is cool because obviously being from down that way, and he's been there for a long time and knows what it means. You look at the crowd last night, like it was rammed, 15,000 in there, but I guess some people were whispering, well, should Hobart host a final, we could get potentially 50, 60,000 at a different venue. But the looks on the faces of those fans last night throughout that run chase just completely made it worthwhile. And particularly for a team who hasn't won a title, it would have been stiff to take it away from down there. And I'm not suggesting it ever would have happened, but it was just the story of the season, I thought, last night.
Was that, like with that venue, that hosting, it's always a bit of a story because, like, I made the point on Willow Talk last week, if Thunder hosted Sixers in the final, didn't pan out that way, but if that came to pass, would Cricket Australia be able to sit there with a straight face and leave 25,000 fans and the associated ticketing revenue out the door and still hold it at the Thunder's home ground as opposed to the SCG? Now, last night, Hobart, you say, fantastic. I don't think anyone who went to that ground last night walked away and said that was the wrong decision. But was there ever any serious thought given to maybe shifting it with the pure idea of getting more revenue?
Yeah, I think it was just too late in the piece. Obviously, Cricket Australia run the tournament, so they can do whatever they want, but there would have been massive blow-ups had they done that as well. I think it needed to be at the SCG. Had the Thunder sort of, top that game with the Sixers, I think that maybe the Thunder players would have been okay playing at the SCG, given the track at NG Stadium's a bit how you're going throughout the season. So
tacky.
Let's call it that, yeah.
Isn't tacky the word that you guys find to describe a wicket that's shit?
Yeah, tacky, Bunsen burner. I reckon if you ask the players privately which deck they'd prefer to play on, the SCG ironically had some question marks over it in years gone by, but it's actually flipped around. But yeah, ultimately that deck last night was fantastic, exactly what we want to see in a final. And and that photo of Owen there in the stands cheering on George Bailey winning a game for the Canes, like how that's popped up that's a bit eerie.
Now it's up to George to select him for Australia one day soon.
Chance?
He's got to be in the frame with the power hitting ability. He's certainly put himself in the frame. And with a T20 World Cup next year, 2026, Sri Lanka, India.
Correct. Yeah, early in the year.
Yeah. Maybe another big BBL, and he's very much in the frame. Matty Wade said it feels like the BBL is back to where it was 10 years ago. So big crowds, I can only presume the numbers from last night were massive. Pretty smart bit of scheduling. Keep it away from the tennis finals. Have it on a Monday night. More people at home, more viewers, and that drives up TV ratings. Do you reckon that's a fair call?
Definitely. So much was talked and debated about the length of the season. They've condensed that, and all indications, all metrics are suggesting that it is working. I think people are getting their fix. They think it's the right number of games. But yeah, broadcast great, crowds fantastic. it does really have a bit of a buzz about it as well. So I think it's completely justified as well. And where it goes to from here, I don't know. There's been some talk of rule changes and floating some different variations on rules to make a little bit of a better product. But at the moment, it's flying. And I think to have Hobart win that down there is perfect for the comp as well.
What kind of rules might be floated?
Double play runouts are being talked about.
Double play runouts?
Yep.
Wow.
So 2 runouts or 2 batsmen could be dismissed in the same ball, which would be very interesting.
Yeah. But only runouts, like not a catch, and if the guy's, you can run him out as well.
Yeah, just double runouts. Yeah, no catches. So if a team was 8 down, theoretically they could win the game off that play. So a little bit of an ode to baseball there. Wrote a big piece last week about it in the Heralds. Designated hitters. So someone like Chris Lynn, is he better suited to just batting and not fielding? Like, are people going to watch Chris Lynn field?
I reckon I know what the answer's going to be.
I reckon he couldn't put his hand up quick enough. But in all seriousness, Cricket Australia's spoken to some international players who would say, I would be so much more keen to come out if I could just bat. And obviously, in turn, then you would have a designated fielder who'd be a gun.
Yeah. Okay.
And it would limit the number of miles and Ks that guys are running. Like someone like Jordan Silk can run up to 10 Ks in a Big Bash game. Now, he's not an example potentially, but are your biggest names and biggest stars better just batting?
Well, didn't Travis Head basically go through the entire IPL without having to field?
Well, yeah, there's obviously been tweaks to the rules over there in the IPL, so it would be a little bit of that as well. But also in a way to quicken up the game as well, the other one is bowling 12 balls from the same end. So having fewer changes.
Yeah, the 100 do that, don't they? Or
yeah, they bowl
12, but yeah.
Yeah, they bowl 10 from each end in basically a way to limit the running between wickets and moving the fields and whatnot. You need to talk to broadcasters around ads and all the rest. But they've been floated. They're definitely talking about it. It hasn't gone to like a formal approval stage yet. But yeah, they're definitely thinking about mixing it up.
When's that happen? Mid-year?
It'll be like June, July, I think. Yeah, and obviously everyone would need to get in a room and talk about it, pros and cons, broadcasters, all the rest. But they're seriously considering being a bit bold with making some changes. They just want higher scoring games that are closer. So obviously the Power Surge does that. But cool. I actually like them. I'd be a fan of it.
The trade window is officially open as well with a Big Bash. So open for 10 days. Teams could have up to 10 players signed by the January 19 cutoff, and now can have up to 12 players signed by the end of the trade window. So a bit of wheeling and dealing to be done here. Existing squad members can't be re-signed during this period. Free agents, if you want to call them, I think they've called them eligible free agents. I don't know why. They're just free agents. Mitch Marsh, Tim David, Matt Renshaw, Chris Lynn, Jason Berendorf, Bo Webster, Travis Head. Now, I'll talk to Chris Lynn shortly about what his go is. He obviously can't speak for others, but is there the feeling that there's going to be some big moves? I guess it's hard when you don't know what summer looks like exactly next week. We've got the test schedule, but yeah, what can you see?
There are so many different factors, right? You've got to be you've got to work out who guys might be involved in the tests and all the rest. So the schedule's not fully done for next summer either. Obviously, the Ashes tests are locked in, but there will be matches around that. The one whose name keeps popping up is Mitch Marsh, obviously been a hero of the West for a long time. You just wonder whether he will stay there. He's sort of been linked with the Stars, but whether Tim David potentially moves. I know that the Canes would love to keep him, but yeah, whether he goes to somewhere like the Strikers has also been whispered around. And yeah, I reckon that the agents' phones will be running hot today. There are a lot of guys off contract and who could slot into some other franchises. So it'll be really interesting, and it's obviously a new concept that they're dealing with and trying to keep the noise of the Big Bash and keep it in the news for a few more days.
Obviously, with a lot of other sports, agents have a lot of sway. And I feel this is really building in cricket because there's so many opportunities. It's a 12-month thing, franchise cricket at the moment. There's so many opportunities. And with other sports like, football, rugby league, all of those sports, agents, you can ring them and go, what's the deal? What's going on? And they're happy when a journalist rings sometimes because then they can get that info out that they don't want to front up with to a certain person that they're dealing with contract-wise. Is this an ever-growing space where you're getting info from agents and it's valuable and it's interesting? Is it? Is it like that in cricket at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's a really interesting game. Clearly, some agents will play the game and tell you things to try and inflate, a player's price, and that's cool. But also, they are very good sources of information as well. But also, by the same token, they've got a lot of power in that there are so many franchises around the world, and Cricket Australia is trying to keep its best players in Australia for as much as they can, obviously, particularly the test guys. But yeah, I just wonder if there's a world where the gap widens. We know the IPL could potentially extend. There could be other leagues in India. There are leagues opening up in countries that we wouldn't associate with being big cricket nations. Canada, UAE, like it goes on. The Saudis, well, they start one. Like it's making it very busy for the agents, but compared to 20, 30 years ago when they had players and they're pretty generally have a state contract, maybe a CA one, and that was about it. Maybe a county deal. So yeah, it's interesting space for those guys at the moment.
Has there been any more murmurs, mumblings about IPL getting involved in the part ownership of any Australian Big Bash franchises, or is Cricket Australia completely happy with this model right now?
It's a good question. Not that I've heard of, to be honest. I couldn't foresee that happening in the near future, but in a world where the pressure on players to stay in India for longer during the year and the money that will be offered, and we know that broadcast deal is huge, and the slice of revenue those players get is not like comparable to other
Still
sports.
very minimal.
Yeah, and I actually think the players should be getting far more than they are. They're not unionised, so they're hardly going to stand together and march out and not play. But yeah, I could see that just getting so much bigger. And then whether that is a trade-off back here, I'm not sure.
Yes, interesting time in the world of T20 cricket. So let's now ask an expert about his life in T20 cricket at the moment. Chris Lynn obviously made his name here domestically with his amazing hitting in the Big Bash early days. Brisbane Heat. He's now an Adelaide Striker. He's off the back of a mildly disappointing campaign. But let's have a chat to Chris about life as a T20 player. Yeah, Chris joins us right now. And Lenny, first of all, with how you summed up BBL 14 in an Instagram post, sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. Has that changed at all since you've posted that?
No, not at all. I mean, we saw last night, just for a perfect example. Hurricanes very good, Thunder very good, but it was a shit night as such for the Thunder. So for me personally, I thought I was starting to hit my straps, and then I had a little injury, little niggle with the hamstring. So it just summed up the tournament for us and the Adelaide Strikers, but with a little bit of banter in there, obviously as well.
Yeah, exactly. How's the body now? Mate, because you've still got options. The circuit doesn't finish. The Big Bash is finished, but obviously the circuit rolls on, and the cricket T20 world in particular keeps spinning.
Yeah, well, the T20 freelance world is 12 months a year, so my body's feeling really good up here on the Sunshine Coast, which I call home now, and just come back from the gym, and even watching that game last night, Mitch Owen, like normally it's the younger blokes getting inspiration from the older guys, but I was in awe of that, and that's inspired me to get up and go again, and keep trying to. I mean, what did he break the record for most sixes in the season? 36 or something like that. So that's the goal next year, is try and get 37.
Yeah, so you being Mr. Big Bash in particular, clearing the rope, like that innings last night, does that even, like it had us all watching it going, holy, like this is a bit of an outlier. Even yourself, who's been there and done that?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I was just at a cafe then, and blokes were coming up going, how good was last night? And these are non-cricket watchers, and they would specifically say, look, I'm not even a cricket follower, but, they had people on the edge of their seats, edge of their couches. And, for me, it's watching him go about his innings, it looked like he was just so composed, and he did his routine every ball. Didn't look like he'd get phased. Sometimes, when you get to 50, you have a little lapse, but he just looked so in the moment. I think it helps that you got that big cherry on top of winning the tournament. I think when I listened to his interview, once he got out, all he was worried about was like those 19 runs. And I think that's so cool to put his performance aside and just focus on that 19 runs, and then he can celebrate.
Take us in when you're at the crease. Take us into the mindset when you're at the crease, and as you say, he was in like his routine. So what is that, and what are you telling yourself when the bowler's at the top of his mark every ball when you're in that kind of groove?
I guess getting off zero is like probably the most nerve-wracking, I reckon. So your heart rate's obviously flying when you go out there. I like to run out to the middle. For me, it just gets me into the contest, versus bat versus ball, and after that you mark centre, and then I actually take a step away and take two massive breaths, and all that does is just slow my thoughts down. Yes, you want to be sharp, you want to be instinctive, but if you slow your thought process down, then you just get your cricket IQ comes out. You have a look around and see what the field placings are, and you get a smallish read on where the game's going or where they're going to bowl the ball. So the more I can slow it down, then when it's in slow motion, how easy is life when it's in slow motion? But in saying that, you still want to be really sharp. So when they're running in, I'm just saying to myself, watch the ball. And it's easier said than done, but watching the ball right onto the bat or watching the ball to where it bounces is a massive difference. You think you're watching the ball until it clean bowls you or you hit it straight up, but when you're watching the ball right onto the bat, you're nearly in autopilot, and that's what Mitch Owen was in last night. And it just never looked like once when you play your best innings that you're rushed. He's just had all the time in the world. Davey Warner's been around the block for how many years now, and some of those sixes that even he hit, it's just with ease because he's in control of his own game. And when you know your game so well, as I said, you're in control. You basically hit autopilot and away you go.
And how much of it is premeditated? Like where the ball's going to go, or is it educated guessing and then you put your body and your shape where it needs to be to execute?
For me, it's a thought process of 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't have many thoughts of hitting 1, 2, or 3. It's a 4 or 6 option. Especially when you open the batting, you got the field up. You got to try and take the game on. And we've seen Mitchy Owen's numbers. Like he has only batted a couple of times up the order before this big bash. Or I don't think he even batted up the order before this big bash. So his role in the team, and I'm massive on roles, right? So you go there, your role. He's got the license to go out there and just take the game on, take the game away from the opposition, and he's done that. So when you play without the fear of failure, it's so exciting to watch. And I was a victim of it early in the big bash this year. I played with too much fear, too much cautiousness around the crease, and got out just nudging the ball. I'm like, that's not my game. So once you run out to the middle, puff your chest out, show a bit of aura of what you've earned over the last decade. It's a different game plan when the bowler's running in and he's trying to be defensive rather than get you out. So that's a big part of the mental game and mental side of cricket, and it's one that not every batter can do, but when you get that chance to have that aura, it's a special feeling.
Extraordinary innings, extraordinary night in Hobart. A little less extraordinary was the Adelaide Strikers. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out for the Strikers this year. Sum it up and also just give us a bit of an insight to what Tim Payne was like as a coach.
Yeah, so to sum our season up, first game we lost by, in the last couple of balls, we lost by 1 run to the Brisbane Heat. A couple of injuries throughout the tournament, but that happens. But we're 1 win away from making the finals, so that's sums up how good the competition is. Yes, we ended up coming last on the ladder, but we're 1 win away from that 4. So, there's plenty of room for improvement for the Adelaide Strikers. Tim Payne as a coach, very relaxed, very fun, and I was really intrigued to see how he'd go from transitioning from assistant coach to a head coach, because when your head's not on the chopping block, the emotions are different. So I thought at times he could have easily lost his cool, but I think the way he goes about it is really cool, and he's learnt from someone like Darren Lehman. I see a lot of similarities in Buff Lehman to Tim Payne. So, the other way around. But yeah, it was awesome, great to work with. I think his knowledge for the game. People forget that he's also captain Australia as well, the second hardest job in Australia. So he's got bundles of experience. He's been around the block, played cricket around the world, and he's a good bloke to be around. So when you've got a coach like that and you want to play for a coach, that's probably what hurts you the most when you do finish down the bottom of the table.
So, analytical or man manager? Which way?
Bit of both. I mean, as I said earlier, everyone's got a role. So he's a head coach. He's got to try and, give someone a pat on the back or maybe give them a rocket, depending on what their profile is. And then you've got an analyst, you've got the batting coach, you've got bowling coaches. So he's not massive on meetings. He's more liking the organic meetings where you're in the nets and just have small conversations with the bowler, when you're having a centre wicket or whatnot. But also relies heavily on your senior players too, which I think is a really good trait. Some coaches that I've been under want to control everything, and it works for some teams. It sometimes doesn't work for other teams when you do have a strong leadership group. But I found he adapted well. I think the best thing is if you do have a bad day or shit day, you got to laugh it off. At the end of the day, we're trying to put our best foot forward, our best performances, but it's not going to work out. As I said, we lost two or three really, really close ones. So if you drive the game or a little bit more luck of the bounce, then you're easily in that top four. So I always like to say if you want to improve 5%, it's essentially as a batter, one or two less dot balls, and as a bowler, it's one less boundary. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel, reinvent the game plan. The blueprint's there. It's all about just executing just that little bit better individually.
What about the BBL as a whole? Back to its best? Have they found the sweet spot with the length of the season and how the schedule plays out?
Yeah, I think it's very, very close. Obviously, like we spoke about with the Dubai and South Africa and Bangladesh on at the same time, Australian, the overseas guys go to those tournaments, those other tournaments, they pay less tax, right? you want to try and cash in and make as much cash as you can. As soon as they come to Australia, you've got to pay 45% tax. So that's why we struggle to get the actual, the icon players around the world. But in saying that, the depth in T20 cricket around the world now is flowing, and I think we saw the overseas guys now actually light it up, and that's why it's really important for guys like Davey Warner, Steve Smith to play as much Big Bash as possible, because you want it to be the strongest tournament. And I've had a conversation with Alistair Dobson. I actually congratulated him on a successful season, because I do believe when we were playing 14 games, it did get a bit just mellowed out, and you want the fans wanting more Big Bash. And after last night, the fans are going to be wanting more, rather than the fans going, I can't wait for football season to start. So I think it's a really strong way to finish the season and, bring on BBL 15.
So with that tax situation, are you saying that maybe Cricket Australia should look at bringing in the Cayman Island Comets or something like that? And that'd be a very popular franchise for a few of the guys.
I'll be captain and coach.
But it is but that's one of those things that you don't think about. You think, oh, these players are coming here, that they fill up, but then they have to go because they've got that better offer. You understand the better offer, but we don't really understand what goes on behind the scenes with making a decision.
Yeah,
like that,
that's
now
right.
that it is the 12-month carousel.
Yeah, that's right. You think if you're an English player and you get a decent whack in Dubai, why wouldn't you double dip and play as many Big Bash games as possible, and also get some match? Every game's still important, but you get a hit before that, your main tournament, whatever it may be. It might be a T10 comp for me leading up to the Big Bash, which I play in Abu Dhabi. So, as I said, it's a 12-month circus of T20 and T10 cricket now, which is very exciting. But the plus side is with all these tournaments, you get to find new talent. Because not everyone can play in the same tournament when they're going on at the same time. So, as I said, unleashing new talent. We saw Josh Brown last year and Mitch Owen this year. So hopefully, they can show their real colours, what we've seen in Australia, what we know they can do around the rest of the world.
Cricket Australia Tuesday morning dropped the list of the players contracted, eligible free agents and uncontracted. I'm just going to focus on some of the eligible bachelors, if you like, the eligible free agents around the place. So you got Jason Sanger from the Thunder. You got a handful from the Sixers. You got guys like Mitch Marsh, AJ Tye, Jason Berendorf from the Scorchers. Who else we got here going through the list from the Melbourne Renegades? Mackenzie Harvey and Kane Richardson. From the Hobart Hurricanes, Timmy David is up for grabs if someone wants him. From the Brisbane Heat, Marnus and Matty Renshaw, Mitch Swepson. And from the Adelaide Strikers, hey, look at that, Travis Head and one Chris Lynn as well. So what does that mean, being an eligible bachelor on the Big Bash list?
Oh, it means you want to stay in the park and score as many runs as possible. Yeah, look, you're up for grabs essentially, but every team's got a different dynamic or what they need or what they look for as well. With three overseas players, Generally, you want a death bowl. Everyone wants an opening batter, and generally someone wants an all-rounder or a spinning all-rounder. Adelaide Strikers were fortunate enough to have Rashid Khan for a number of years. Now we've got the spin twins in Pope and Boyce. So teams change. Brisbane Heat, for example, they'll try and keep whoever they can, because they'll probably bundle their contracts together, which is probably frowned upon, but with the Queensland Bulls set up. But yeah, there's WA. They are reluctant to use 3 overseas because their depth in their local talent is there. So I'm amazed how the Perth Scorchers have had that lineup for such a long time, because their quality, like their bowling lineup, is actually international level. So not to mention their batters when they're fully fit as well. So that's the beauty of the Big Bash. It's unfair when your team plays well, because people demand more cash. But yeah, on the flip side, you got to do what's right for number one, and that's yourself. So who knows where all those names and myself will pop up in the next couple of weeks.
When does that get sorted then? Like, when do you have to, like, by the end of Feb, or do you leave it for a bit and then come back to them when something desirable pops up?
Yeah, I'm actually not too sure, to be honest. That's what you pay your agent for. But I guess, obviously your agent will be wanting you to get the most cash somewhere else. But this is why I love agents that have their own money, because they're making their decision based on what's best for a Chris Lynn or a Timmy David or whoever it may be. Whereas the young guys coming through get a little bit excited and might get not bullied as such by their agent, but get told what to do, which I don't necessarily agree with. But yeah, they know all the rules and the regulations. So we'll soon find out. But it's not just a threat from other BBL teams; it's other franchises, like we're speaking about with Dubai and South Africa. They're probably more so of a threat.
Hey, with the exit from the Brisbane Heat, I mean, you came up with so many iconic moments there on warm nights at the Gabba. How do you reflect on it now? I mean, obviously you've landed in Adelaide, and I'm sure you appreciate those short boundaries and good wicket at the Adelaide Oval. But
there's a method to
looking back on your
there.
time at the Heat, no shock. The exit from the Heat and how it sits now, is it in any way in your mind, or it's gone?
Oh, not really. I mean, they still try and throw a few daggers here and there, but I think they're just still trying to ride off my success back in the day. But personal success, because we didn't actually have a lot of team success, to be honest. We had enough. We won it in BBL 02, which was awesome, and we had some quality players throughout the years. I think we were the number one trending side and viewership during that period, which is really cool. Playing with AB de Villiers, Brendan McCullum as well, one of my best mates. So that was the time of your life, to be honest. We had so much fun. Yeah, as I said, we would have liked to win more games of cricket, but the Gabba was packed. And it was loud. So that's something I look back and go, yeah, they were really cool moments, but yeah, you would have just liked a little bit more team success. And whether or not that comes down to a roster thing or whatever, who knows?
Talk us through perhaps the biggest six in Big Bash history, and talk us through how many times you viewed it on YouTube.
Well, it got brought up the other day that Hilton Cartwright and Glenn Maxwell hit bigger ones, but I reckon Laurie Colliver and Foxy were on the piss the night before. So, yeah, look, it's as I said, I would have liked to win a few more games, and I'm not as consistent as I would have liked, but I'd like to think you come up with a couple of box office moments, and that's definitely one of them. We've got the wild thing, Sean Tate, and I love Tatey, so I hope this doesn't offend him in any way, but, they call him the wild thing for a reason. He doesn't know where they're going. How am I supposed to know where they're going? So when you can do all the planning you want, but I just know he's steaming in, and it's like, and I'm like, oh, God, this is going to hurt. If I don't hit it, this is going to hurt so much. And, we're using those big bats before Ricky got him banned. And, it's just one of those things.
Ricky got a band.
Yeah, before he brought in the bat gauges. But, it's just one of those things that I found, it was awesome. Like, he's bowling quick. You want to turn it on at the Gabba. And I actually thought I hit it straight up in the air, to be honest, and then sort of kept going. And, going and going. And then, then that all of a sudden I was walking down to Brendan McCullum and I'm like, he said not bad. I'm like, not bad. I was like, this is taking the wild thing out of the cover. And then I was like, all right. And then after the game, he's like, mate, we had a job at hand. It's like, and that was the biggest thing. Had a job, still had 100 odd runs to chase down, and that was the most important thing at that time. But for me, it was. I was like, fuck, that's pretty cool.
It's still pretty cool. But because I can only guess. You look at sometimes tennis when a player hits a clean shot and they hit it back, and they time it so well that there's that much pace on the ball that it makes that one going back quicker. It was because it was Sean Tate, and you have absolutely middled it. That's the end result, because there's pace on the ball and you've given it a bit more, and then away she goes.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of my strengths as well, just in terms of batting. No matter how tall and how fast they bowl, the ability to hit the ball, back over their head as a fast bowler, it's probably the most demoralising thing. I mean, a lot of players, when they're facing fast bowling, will use the pace, get up and under and ramp it or hit it behind square or over point. Whereas I think that's one of my strengths, is hitting the ball, back over the bowler's head. And as I said, if you're coming in bowling 145 plus, it can be quite demoralising. So that's something I work on in the nets all the time, and pretty special moment. But no, I've only watched it once or twice on YouTube.
Yeah, sure. You're watching it every night before to go to bed. You always got to go to bed happy, and I reckon that might make you happy before you go to bed. 20-odd games for Australia, 22 in fact.
Yeah.
Comfortable with that, or would you leave something in the tank there, do you think?
Oh, look, I didn't play my best cricket when I was playing for Australia, but I have no regrets whatsoever. That might have been my ceiling as well. Everyone's got a ceiling. I know my cricket IQ wasn't as good as where it is now, and that comes through experience and whether or not you panic a little bit here or there. But I definitely didn't play my best. But as I said, I have no regrets on everything that I did or how I played. That's just how the journey goes. So. I'm essentially just a gatekeeper of that green and gold cap, and seeing these young guys come through now. They're playing all the shots in the world and taking the game on from ball one, and right, it's so awesome to watch. But as I said, maybe that was my ceiling. I don't know.
Do you miss first class cricket as opposed to bouncing around the world and living the life on the T20 circuit?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, if you ask, you think I'm going to go back and play field for 4 days right now after playing the Big Bash? Not a chance. I remember there was one summer. There was one summer where we lost the toss, and I fielded for every day of the Sheffield Shield season that we got on the field, and that was a big turning point. Not also the fact that I had a couple of shoulder recons as well, which didn't help. The worst feeling in the world is, I believe, being able to play day one and day two, and if you have 2 big days, whether it's in the field or batting, not being able to lift your shoulder day 3 and 4, that's when you let your teammates down, I believe. So the time was right for me. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved batting in Sheffield Shield cricket. You've got 4 slips and a gully. It had so many gaps in front of the wicket, and I just went like, you can visualise. When you hit a strong single to the man in the deep in white ball cricket, why can't you do that in Sheffield Shield? And that was my mindset. But the final straw is when I think I was on like 87, and it was day 2 of a game at the Gabbo, and I actually got caught on the fence, and there was 9 fielders on the fence. And I was like, my time's up here in the longer format. So I was thinking I'm going to do this in, three shots. But, I ended up, getting caught, and I just knew I didn't have the passion to. I wasn't doing myself justice, or the Queensland baggy maroon justice at that point in time. So the opportunity of franchise cricket is something that I wanted to explore, and I'm really actually proud of myself for not turning around my decision and going back to Sheffield Shield or even like one day cricket when things aren't going right in T20 cricket. I've stuck to my guns and authentic with my decision.
Yeah. It didn't sound like you had the passion that day to just drop it at your feet 13 times to get the century, 13 singles. Instead, just tried to do it in 3 shots.
Well, that's normal. We've got Bazball now. Maybe it is time to come back to to red ball cricket. The way Semi Constance is playing and Bazball, you never know.
I'll get to Bazball in a moment because, as you mentioned before, you're really good mates with Brendan McCullum. But just on that, okay, that transition then from walking away from the long form to get into the carousel. So you played all around the world, mate. Obviously IPL. You played in Sri Lanka. It looks like you played on every island in the Caribbean, which I don't know. You'd have a good sample of
Yep.
what's a good place. You played in Pakistan. You played in England, UAE, and outside of Australian shores. You played in Canada, you played in Zimbabwe, I think, as well.
Yep.
US, outside of Australian shores, where has been the best cricket have fun balance? Not so much all about the cricket. We can sit here and be boring and talk about, the wickets were good there and everything, but you've had a great time playing cricket and you've had a bloody good time off the park as well.
That's a tough question. I'm going to have to say Toronto, just because Toronto is actually very similar to Brisbane, where it has been home for forever. So for me, the big storms would roll in, some quality cricket. You're trying to grow the game, and you go into a Blue Jays game, seeing the Rogers Centre just packed full of people. They just do it so much better and bigger over in Canada and America. So I'd have to say there. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had awesome moments in the IPL, in the Caribbean. The Caribbean's different. I found it a little bit tricky in the Caribbean because the training facilities weren't like what we used to over here. So if you were out of nick, you actually couldn't get better during the tournament. Whereas the difference between like Caribbean and IPL, the IPL have wonderful facilities in India, and if you are feeling out of nick, you can get in and get stuck into the nets. And I find when you're playing good cricket or training well, your time at that tournament and away from the game, amplifies, and you're having so much more fun. If you're in the bush as such, it's a bit like Pakistan, because of what's gone over there the last decade. It's a big assignment to get to training and back. So there's limited spots, limited time to do that. So if you're training well and you're outside as well as a lot, I find, well, for me personally, I'm a socialite, right? And I like being outdoors. Whether it's playing golf, going to the beach, whatever it may be, you just have that much more fun rather than being locked up. And that's probably why I struggled so much throughout COVID as well. I think in the 2.5 years I did 4 months hard quarantine, which was an absolute nightmare. And look back now and go, what the fuck we've just done?
Yeah. Get your point there. With Toronto, was that where you and Bo Webster and a few others ended up at your mate's Fisher, his DJ set? Was that the night?
That was the night, yeah. It took the boys. Ashton Agar was part of that, Benny Manenti, Timmy Seifert, and Slug. So, now that Slug's on the tour with the Aussie boys, he owes me one back. The greatest night of their life, they reckon. So it was quite interesting because we actually went to the concert because Fish didn't reply. He's like, I'll sort you out, no worries. And he didn't reply, so we're on the way to the concert without tickets. And I'm thinking, shit. So I got hold of his manager, and all of a sudden we got in. Fish is playing up on the decks, and then we're bouncing along because we're up and about. We just won the semi-final in the morning, and then all of a sudden you see Fisher just roll the arm over on the decks up there, and that's when the boys knew they were on. Set the scene.
He's a Southeast Queensland mate of yours, isn't he? That mad
Yeah, so
mad guy behind the
hails
decks?
from the Gold Coast with the Mad Huey boys, the professional surfers / idiots. Some of our closest mates. So we're catching up with the boys down in Live Golf in 2 weeks' time. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh,
That'll be a
my
quiet one
goodness.
for sure.
Yeah, in bed by 9 p.m. I actually saw you guys in full flight at the McFadden Golf Day, and I won't go into it, but you played the golf day, I'm pretty sure, and the Mad Huey's hole was there about halfway through. You only played half a round. You got stuck at the Mad Huey's hole, I think, and you were just hitting celebrity drives, I think, for people, just bombing it over the trees.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
hey.
That's probably one of the best days on the calendar year too. What Mick's done for his foundation is awesome. He's raised a lot of money, but the people at that event, like, I'm not a celebrity by any means, but the people that were there, I was in awe of.
Life's there to be lived, mate, and you do it well. Brendan McCullum. So you're good mates with him from your times of, unless it was before. I'm guessing in the Big Bash with Brisbane. Any reach out from him now that he's got all the franchise, all the white ball cricket as well as the red ball, to say, hey, come over here and teach these English boys how to clear the rope a bit? Anything there?
Well, they're doing it for fun at the moment. I think no, not at that point. He's obviously just sinking his teeth into the white ball stuff at the moment, getting his grasp of how the lay of the land. I'm going to say the English media don't take it too light. Like an overseas coach coming in, they don't take too lightly. So took a lot of warming for Baz, I reckon. But the fact that he's entertained and proved a lot of people wrong. Well, put it this way, he changed the dynamic of New Zealand cricket, and we've seen that through Kane Williamson's captaincy. And the way New Zealand play as well now. So I look forward to seeing what he can do with the white ball side. I remember talking to him, and he didn't want to go straight into the white ball team because they were already world number one when Owen Morgan was skipper. He wanted a challenge, and their red ball team under Joe Root, no fault of Joe Root's, but he was skipper of the side, weren't doing that well. So he wanted to be that man to change it, and gee whiz, he's changed it with flying colours. So, speak to Baz. He actually gets down to the Gold Coast quite a bit. He was at the Magic Millions not long ago, and he's into his horses, as everyone knows. So when he's on the coast, his wife is actually from down the coast as well. So it's pretty cool that he comes over all the time, get to catch up. But it's one of those relationships where you actually don't need to text and talk all the time. You know that they're busy. You basically, a friend in silence. So you appreciate each other's work, and but it's when you're in the same city, it's always a catch up, and tell you what, it's always a good one.
I bet it is. So I'm guessing, midpoint of 2023, when a certain Ashes series was on, did things get a little spiky between you, or did you just shoulder arms for the first time in your life and leave it and not get involved at all?
I said friends in silence. Yeah, it was a bit like that. There's a few. I know there's a bit of banter for sure. But that's just all part of the gig, and you've got to have thick skin in this industry, as well as anyone. But it's all in good fun. But the media doing the media job, blow things out of proportion, and away you go from there. But mate, he's on the podium for the best humans I know, and as I said, what he's done, and just how easy he does it. And when people speak, people listen. When he speaks, people listen. Sorry, and he doesn't have to raise his voice. I mean, there's ways to go about things, and then there's the Brendan McCullum ways, and basically the textbook goes out the window. And his number one saying is run into fear, run into the storm, because if you run away from the storm, it's just going to follow you. So take it head on, run into it, and you'll come out the other side much quicker.
Somehow I've got to get him and Hads in the room. You could be the conduit here. So we'll reach out in that regard. That'll be a fun chat with those two. They'll just stare at each other. Probably won't even talk. So
it won't be cheap, that chat.
World Cup. Exactly. But no, he's. I read at the start of it all when he took over, and then the media, the English media came up with the name Bazball, that he wasn't comfortable at all with it being called that. Bazball.
Yeah.
He'd rather just say it's just a newish way of playing cricket.
Yeah, well, that's just the way he played cricket. But I think that they got it from Moneyball or whatever that American saying is. So they just wanted to put a little bit more pressure on him because the New Zealand captain. Coaching England didn't sit that well, but to his credit, he's turned everyone's opinion around of him, and he's such an approachable bloke. And as I said, how articulate he is for a bloke that goes out and just slogs the ball. That's what we see. There's so many more layers to him, and not only that, he's a bloody good man away from the game.
Mate, lastly, you've made it as a cricketer when fans start getting tattoos of you. Redback Jim, I've got a photo in front of me here. Redback Jim, who got #Linsanity tattooed above his heart. And there's a photo with you meeting him here at, I can only presume that's Adelaide Oval. Looking at the seats, you're in the Strikers kit. That must be a flip-out moment when you see, okay, you've inked yourself a life with my name. Cool.
Yeah, it was actually a bet. I was playing for Northampton, and I got 100 in the T20 Blast, and it was something like, if you get another 100 in the season, I'll get a tattoo. And it was like the next game I got 100, and the next week he had the tattoo. So that was the first time I've actually seen him in person. So, mate, he's Redback Jim. He loves the South Australian Redbacks. Gets around to every cricket he can, and yeah, it's pretty cool to see that. But yeah, luckily there's tattoo removal.
I was going to say, you're a free agent now. You could be playing for someone else next season.
Yeah, that's right.
Hopefully, for Redback Jim's sake, you're not.
Yeah. But mate, I met him the other night, and he's a bloody good man, and does a lot of work for charity as well. So we might even do something with that down the line.
Lenny, thanks so much for the chat, mate. Kept enough of your time after you're fresh out of the gym. Sun's out, guns out. Enjoy the rest of the day, and thanks for your time on Willow Talk, mate.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Quick drinks break here on Willow Talk. Back in a moment with Tommy Decent. Going to preview the first test. Have a look at the women's Ashes, the big test coming up at the MCG, and Sundries as well. Plenty to get through. We're back with Tom Decent from the Sydney Morning Herald, cricket writer there, to talk Test cricket. Here it is again. How was the summer, by the way? Did you have fun? The India series?
Unbelievable, right? Like, in terms of a journalist perspective, we had all the storylines you could want. Carnage in Perth, the rebound in Adelaide. A pretty good result in Brisbane, like in terms of things going on, and then Melbourne. Changes, Constas, unbelievable win. And then all going down to the final session in Sydney. Like, absolute dream in terms of the scribes.
We will get to this Sri Lanka series in a moment, but really importantly, I like knowing these things, strangely. Best buffet on offer around the country during the summer for the journos?
Biased, but Sydney.
Yeah, you guys, because you guys get looked after so well in the press box. Do they feed you to like write nice things about cricket in Australia? Do they? Like they feed you well?
I don't know, but I believe the broadcasters are supposed to do their own food, but sometimes the broadcasters sneak into the print section and get our food because we think it might be a little bit better.
Yeah,
Mark Howard for Fox did a little roving cam during one of the lunch breaks, and we were all having massive plates of food and got spotted on the telly, and
copped it.
Yeah, I tried to hide away from the camera when it came through, but an unnamed TV reporter got told off for wearing a T-shirt. So,
oh really? Because you have to wear a collar, don't you? Or is that only the MCG? You got to wear a collar.
SCG you do definitely, but
really?
you can get away with being a bit casual. But it was more just that normally he's dressed in a collared shirt. Probably thrown him in there, but
fair enough. You're not going to name a name?
Cannot.
Okay, yeah, because you'll get you back. Let's get to this first test preview for it's starting Wednesday afternoon in Galle, Sri Lanka. Start time 3:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Interestingly enough, double check it before you go tomorrow, but it's on the 7 network and 7 Plus. No Fox, no pay television, subscription television element to this. It's all on free to air, and we'll get to what that might mean a bit later on for future series and the like. But Australia, well, Steve Smith batted for 2 hours in the nets on the weekend, so that looks like normal Steve Smith caper. So he should front up. We're recording this just before the team gets named, by the way. So by the time you listen to this, you'll know the 11. So we're just going to pontificate about a few issues as well. Matt Kuhneman looks like he's going to play. He's in the squad still after breaking his right thumb. Travis Head, what do they do with him? Sam Constas, what do they do with him? We're in the World Test Championship final. Assuming our overrate is okay over in Sri Lanka. Imagine that.
Be a great story. Not a great story, but a story.
It would be a story. I don't know how you can get pinged for overrates on the subcontinent with spin bowling.
If you can't bowl your overs there, then might as well.
Exactly. How do you feel about what this 11 could look like, should look like? What are they planning for with how they're going to come up with the makeup of this team?
I think that definitely locking up that World Test Champ final changes things as much as they probably say publicly it doesn't. I know some tweaks to that squad happened as a result of that game being locked up, like Pete Hanscom as an example, right? Like, you don't come into a squad if they don't think they're planning for you and then things change and McSweeney goes. So I probably subscribe to the view of investing in youth a little bit on this tour. You rarely get a free hit where 2 tests basically don't mean anything. And ultimately, no one's going to remember these 2 tests in a few years' time. But if it can help the likes of Sammy Constas, Cooper Connolly, these guys get accustomed to the subcontinent before, if we're being honest, the big series Australia wants to win at India 2027 over there. If this can help them in any way possible, I think that is a good thing. So whether Constas opens or not, I know Ricky Ponting's very keen on not changing him not putting Head up the top. and keeping Consis up there for his confidence, which I like as well. And the other interesting one is Ollie Peake, the Victorian who's gone over there, an 18-year-old, just as a development player over there with the test squad, which is cool. So, yeah, maybe earmarked as a future star.
Yeah, so you mentioned that series in India 2027. I think that happens in January as well, which is weird kind of scheduling, but like later January. It's not going to bump into our Australian Test summer. But you feel that if they want to succeed there, that guys like Kuhnemann and Murphy are going to get a fair crack at it in Sri Lanka. Otherwise, it feels like a missed opportunity.
It does. I mean, they wouldn't take Line out of the squad, and whether he believes he can get to India 27, I think he wants to. Clearly, none of those guys in that group have won over there, and that is the holy grail at the moment. Obviously, did it at 2004, and they would love to do that. But, yeah, we think Kuhnemann, given these left armers, takes the ball away from the bat, will be handy. Cooper Connolly as well obviously adds a different string to his bow, being a very competent batter as well. So, look, the team might get named and we might have egg on our face, but it does appear to be a bit of a shootout between Todd Murphy and Scott Boland, whether they go the second quick with Mitchell Starc. Now, Australia went pretty conventional in 2022, basically the normal guys and one more spinner with coming in. So, we will see. But great to watch, though. Great time of year. Not a lot of sport on. Yeah. Can't wait.
Yeah.
But interesting, though, obviously clashing with the women's Ashes as well.
Yeah, we'll have a chat about the women's Ashes in a sec, but yeah, head to head, but it's all on 7 on that platform, the women's Ashes and also the Test match. Mitch Starc, by the way, needs 2 wickets to overtake Wasim Akram as the most wickets by a fast bowler in Sri Lanka. Starkey's got a really good record over there. And Steve Smith, of course, needs 1 run for 10,000 runs in Tests. Yeah.
I interviewed Steve about a week or two ago and about it all at the SCG, funnily enough. And I said, like you have chocky bars for hundreds. What's your 10,000 treat? And he said, I thought he would say like a variety of chocolate, but he's thinking brownie, like vanilla ice cream, I think was his response. So I don't know what the standard of brownie and ice cream is over there. But if he can get that in Galle, might treat himself.
Would have been pretty good at the SCG. Was he still ticked about it? About missing out at the SCG, that milestone, or it didn't really bother him because they won the Test?
I think he was ticked off about the deck, to be honest. I think most of the batsmen, he called it a stinker. I think privately there was some real head scratches there, considering Australia just needed to draw that match to retain or regain the trophy. So he's okay. I think he's got over it. But the fact he couldn't do this, because they were going to do a big celebration with the 3 guys who've got 10,000 on the field after play, I think. So I don't think those 3 guys will all fly over to Sri Lanka and do the same thing in Galle.
No. Oh, my goodness. On Sri Lanka, they lost 6 of 11 tests this World Test Championship cycle. They were a sneaky hope of getting in until very late, but obviously they tailed off a bit. They did beat New Zealand 2-0 last September at home with both tests in Galle. So, players to watch. Kamindu Mendes averages 74 from 10 tests, 17 innings with 5 centuries, 3rd fastest to 1,000 runs in 13 innings. He absolutely one to watch and could be ending up in the upper echelon of players that we've seen.
Yeah, and I always love those stats where you're looking at the fastest to 1,000 and 2,000, so it gives you a really good picture of how they compare to guys before them. But, what I find interesting about him as well, obviously he's known for his batting in tests, but he bowls with both arms, bowls spinners with both arms. He played the Aussie 19s guys about 7 years ago and came out bowling left arm orthodox and then swapped around the wicket and bowled right armers.
We thought we were going well with Bo Webster and his medium paces and off spinners in 1 over.
Hasn't bowled a lot in tests, but if he did, that's a headache.
Imagine that. Far out. That's incredible. Yeah, he's such a talent, and I think he got runs in England last year as well. So it's not like he's just doing it on turning decks. Like we saw Pakistan come down last summer with a couple of guys who had big reputations but built on subcontinental decks and just couldn't handle it here, unfortunately. So playing at home, he's certainly one to watch. An intriguing cricketer is Prabath Jayasuriya. So famous name in Sri Lankan cricket, obviously. But this guy, he's played 17 tests, but he made his debut as a 30-year-old. Took 12 wickets when Sri Lanka beat Australia in Galle in 2022. He's got over 100 wickets already. Talk about a late bloomer.
Yeah, very good cricketer. Obviously, left armour. Same as Jayasuriya, left armour. Orthos. attacks the stumps. Couple of sixes there against Australia in that last test in Galle where they got pumped by an innings and 30-odd runs. So, I looked at some highlights recently and he does get bite, obviously, and a lot of those batters look pretty just couldn't believe they've been beaten. So we'll try and draw guys out of the crease and has had a lot of success as well. So Australia will be doing their homework on him for sure.
Angelo Matthews is still going around. 116 test matches, 37-year-old batting all-rounder. Could be his last. Might not be his last. He could go on. He obviously loves his cricket.
Yeah, obviously been around for a long time. He was there in the 2011 series that Australia played over there the last time. They actually won a series in Sri Lanka. Could be his last tour, yeah, maybe. He's still averaging over 40 in his last 3 seasons or 3 calendar years in Test cricket. So I think 4th on the averages ever for Sri Lanka. So a very decorated player and, would love to win that series for the home guys.
Favourite Sri Lankan cricketer?
Being an ex-keeper, I think Sangakkara, purely for the fact that I know obviously didn't keep the whole of his career.
But say Kalawathana, I think.
No, but I mean, like, to average in the high 50s, 57 or 56 is ridiculous, isn't it? And obviously being a gloveman, fun to watch.
Their best 11 would be a bloody entertaining cricket team. Don't you reckon? Malinga, Murali,
Chaminda Vas,
Kumar Sangakkara,
Jay Wardner,
Aravinda De Silva, Jay Wardner. We're filling up the lineup here. Jay Surya, Kalawathana, and I reckon I've got the captain who is my favourite Sri Lankan cricket player because he's the most controversial Sri Lankan cricket player. Well, not in the eyes of Daryl Hare, that's someone else. But no, not Murali.
Who?
Ranatunga.
Oh.
Arjuna. He just added this spice that you just loved about cricket, and never forget what Ian Healy said to him one night at the SCG in one day. But yeah, he was a guy that was standing up for his country. Now, obviously, I don't know him as a bloke, and maybe the Australian cricketers of the era can tell me what he was like as a bloke, and maybe not say nice things, maybe say nice things about him. But he just added this, a bit like Sourav Ganguly did. He brought this edge to it that made you really want to see things happen, like failure.
I agree.
And success for Australia.
I agree. Yeah, we should ask Keels. Yeah, one of the great sledges of all time, the Mars Bar one, but all time.
Because I remember Sri Lanka in the 80s, they were garbage. They used to come out here for World Series cricket, and it was like, oh, Sri Lanka are coming, so Australia are going to play whoever else is coming in the best of 3 Benson and Hedges final type thing. But that it turned late 80s, early 90s, and then they end up winning that World Cup in 96. And they've kind of fluctuated, obviously. They've been a very hard team to beat in Sri Lanka. They don't tour so well. But it feels like they're okay at the moment, but the emergence of Afghanistan have become a very good white ball cricket team. Pakistan can't sort their you-know-what out. India are strong, but Sri Lanka have always had these very, very good players. So hopefully this guy like Mendes is one, and Joe Surya, if he's going to cause us all kinds of problems. They don't look like they've got this top-end team that they've once had, but they've always had very good individuals.
100%, and obviously 5th on the World Test champ ladder. I think they won 10 of their last 14 at home since 2021. That's a good record. So yeah, they'll be tough to beat.
What's the word about this broadcast situation? It came out of nowhere. It blindsided me to see that Fox didn't get it because Fox traditionally have had the overseas tours. 7 I didn't know 7 had a stack of money at the back of the couch to chuck at things like this, but 7 have got it, and it's bouncing between 7-2 and 7 mate. So really watch your days that you're tuning in because it's a bit all over the place because the women's Ashes is on at the same time. But what does this say about the broadcast space?
The success of the summer, clearly. A good time zone as well, a good time of year as well. Fox went hard, so this wasn't a case of them just saying we're not going to do this series. They went very hard, but 7 clearly went harder. And Dan Brettig, my colleague at The Age, has written a big piece about where this leaves it, whether 7 will show more overseas cricket. There has never been a subcontinent tour shown on free-to-air TV in Australia. Now, the last one that wasn't a World Test Champ final or an Ashes was South Africa 97 on 7. So, yeah, if 7 want to get involved, obviously 9 show the Ashes over in the UK. But, yeah, it was a big story and a big move and I guess shows or underlines their commitment to it. They've got Tommy Wilson, a reporter over there on the ground from Galle,
Tommy's
which is
gone,
cool.
has he?
Yeah, so
Good trip.
great trip. One city, about 15 days. So yeah, very interesting to watch. But how they juggle it as well, I think one of the days the men's match is on 7+ as well, so everyone's got to be a little bit working out exactly where it'll be, but no shortage of cricket on there.
I just hope that, that it's all available on 7 Mate or 7/2. Like having to go to the streaming sometimes is a bit difficult for people. With all due respect to the programmers at Channel 7, if Ice Road Truckers takes precedence over an MCG Women's Ashes test or a Sri Lanka test, I'm asking questions. But hopefully that's not the case. So we'll wait and see because 9 have got the Ashes. They've locked that away in England. But all the rest is as per. But there's be interesting to see what happens with that Windies tour in the middle of the year as well.
Particularly given that it looks like there might be a day-nighter over in the Windies.
A day-night test?
Which would obviously mean breakfast cricket here.
Oh, that's a good bit of news you brought into the building here, Tom. So with the Windies test, is that now, I think you reported it, didn't you? You said that instead of 2, it's going to be 3?
Yeah, they were really keen to make that a fair income 3-test series. I know that a lot of nations don't want 2-test series. They feel like it becomes a little bit, not meaningless, but like what we saw when the Windies came out and Shamar Joseph bowls them to victory. There was no 3rd test to go to a decider.
Yeah.
The dates haven't been officially confirmed yet, but it will basically be Barbados, Grenada and Kingston as the 3 venues. And they're definitely talking about making a day-night test, which obviously Australian broadcasters would be super keen, because the Windies generally tests are pretty poor in terms of time zones run in the middle of the night. But if they could get some of that cricket early in the morning, that just doesn't happen here outside of maybe a Kiwi test potentially. But yeah.
Got your hand up for that one?
Big time. It couldn't be higher. It could not be higher.
You're on a step ladder. Mitch Stark, by the way, we spoke to him. He's not in love with the idea of a 3-test series over there, because if he plays the tour in Sri Lanka and then plays the World Test Championship and then plays the 3 in West Indies, the 3rd one over there in the Windies will be his 100th test as opposed to an Ashes test. So, he can take it or leave it, the 3-test series.
I was in Kingston as a backpacker 10 years ago for the last time they played there, and I can confirm it is not the greatest city in the world.
Okay.
It's of the venues. I know Australia are going to Barbados and Grenada, but doing it in Kingston, probably like Steve Smith getting his 10,000 in Galle. There's other places you'd prefer to do it.
Where else did you travel in the Caribbean as a backpacker?
Good story if I can do really quickly.
Take your time.
They actually changed the dates of that Windies test about a month before the series. So I was in Austin, and one of the boys we were with said, "Oh, do you want to watch the cricket?" I said, "Mate, I'm going to the cricket in 2 days. What are you talking about?" We turned on the telly and the cricket had already started. So all these Aussie punters came in on the night of day 2. We missed the first 2 days of the test. I think Smith got 199. Day 3, ended on lunch on day 4. So we were stuck in Kingston, kicking a footy around on the Oval, drinking in the, Kingston Cricket Club with Jeffrey Dujon. Like, it was one of the great days. But Jeffrey Dujon, that's a story for another day. But an old guy came over and said, "Do you know who that man is?" I was like, "No." So that's Jeffrey Dujon. He wants to have a drink with you boys. So we had a few rumbos with Jeffrey Dujon over there.
Did he recreate any of his diving ability? Because he had one of the great wicketkeeper dives of all time.
As I said, like being a ex-keeper, like it was absolute heaven, Didn't recognise him off the top, but he's a little bit older, but amazing. And a really good golfer too, and an absolute rock star over there, as you could imagine.
I was going to say, nice bloke too. Happy to retail a few stories of touring Australia and the like.
Champion. And drove us, he was under the limit, but drove us back to our accommodation afterwards.
Different road rules over there, perhaps.
When you're Jeffrey Dujon, there's also different road rules potentially.
Yeah, no, 0.05 over there in, where was that, Kingston? That was in
Jamaica.
Outstanding. Moving on to the Women's Ashes. So Australia lead this clearly after sweeping the T20 series. England did not get a point in the white ball series. They look to be a team, a squad with a few questions to ask when they get back home. And it feels like in a wider sense about preparation in terms of development preparation and hardening their cricketers for tours like this. This looks like a tour that's really rattled them up at every level inside the ECB.
Screams of the men's Ashes in 06-07 when England came out and just could not compete with Australia 5-zip. Things have just gone so badly in all fronts. There were high hopes that they could compete and be close to it, but I think the Australians I think Phoebe Litchfield had mentioned there had been spice between them, and I think they wanted to be completely ruthless, and they've absolutely done that. You know, Beth Mooney, 90-odd in the last T20, just absolutely sensational. And I just can't help but feel that it is a little bit of a shame that this Women's Ashes test is at the end of the series when there is not a lot up for grabs. I know that Ash Gardner and co would love more than one test. I just wonder whether I know scheduling is extremely hard to do, but maybe the test in future's got to be at the start to make it like the champagne event. If they're trying to get, 40, 50,000 at the G, I just wonder whether the same crowd will go down there now that it's 12 with one to play.
Yeah, well, the women's schedule is going to look very different in years to come with the fact that the women's IPL is going to be on in January. So where are they going to play these test matches and how are they going to fit it into a window where they can get as many people through the gate? You need to do that in school holidays. So where are they going to find a window to play a test match amongst the men's schedule in school holidays when Big Bash is on as well? That is the big question because, it looks like halfway through January, the women are off. The best ones are over earning a buck in India, and fair play to them.
Yeah, I interviewed Nick Hockley before the series about it all, about the schedule and Ash Gardner's comments that we'd like to play a 3-test series. And he just said that the schedule is so difficult, particularly for the women's game. They're playing so much more cricket. There are so many more leagues popping up, as you said, the window early in the year. So he just hopes that there's more multi-format series between countries because obviously there's not a lot that do it in the grand scheme of things. So more of that, he believes, is going to be a better outcome.
Yeah, just back to England as well. So the coach, John Lewis, there's this quote. Have you seen this quote?
Oh, yeah.
It's, whoa. I wasn't thinking along these lines, but maybe John is. Said, I walked from Bondi to Coogee last Sunday evening, and pretty much every Australian in the eastern suburbs is in the water doing surf lifesaving, playing touch rugby. For me, that's a cultural difference. I definitely think Australia have an advantage in terms of athleticism. Now, there's been criticism from their own in England about how England have prepared physically for this as well. Obviously, it's a subject where you've got to be really clear with your language and what you're trying to get across. But what do you make of that from John Lewis?
I think he was high on life doing the Bondi to Coogee and just looked around and saw everyone running around and playing sport. And as
sun's out, guns out.
It does seem like a bit of a cop-out. Would that be fair, that blaming it on cultural things? They were strange, interesting, raised eyebrows. Obviously, it got kick-started by Alex Hartley, the former international, saying she didn't believe the team was fit enough. She's made that very clear. That wasn't from a place of having a go at them. That is just the nature of professional cricket now. And that was her view and pointed out. So, an interesting response. To be fair, the England coach, John Lewis, said that if you come and see them train, like you wouldn't not make those comments, but you would feel like you would understand that they are fit enough and all the rest. So, didn't have that one on the bingo card after getting towed up.
Well, on that test obviously starts on Thursday. We'll do a big preview on Thursday's show and find out if Heels is going to play. Fingers crossed that El Capitan will be involved there. To Sundries, Tom, this is how we round out every episode of Willow Talk. Jasprit Bumrah named ICC Men's Test Cricketer of the Year for 2024. Hard to argue given what you saw with your own eyes throughout those 5 tests this summer. I watched a lot of it on TV. I can't quite think of a better one at the moment.
Absolutely justified. Sitting behind him in the press box in Perth, watching that spell on day one of the series was extraordinary, and it just got better and better and better. Really sad in a way that he didn't get the chance to have a crack in that last innings in Sydney. That would have just been his performance has justified the chance to do that and win, draw the series for India and keep the trophy. But got 71 wickets at 14.9 in the calendar year, which I looked up. No one who's got 71 wickets or more than 71 wickets has a lower average. Like everyone's averaging in the low 20s, high teens. So goes to show what an unbelievable year he had.
And Adam Zampa over in the UAE playing the ILT20 for the Sharjah Warriors, spelt with a Z, not an S. Funky. He shared some prophetic words with him next to a very fast car, saying, "You run the day or the day runs you." Thanks, Zamps. I'll take that on board.
He is almost best on ground for Instagram content out of the Aussie test guys and ODI, not test guys, Australian cricketers for sure. He's very funny. I like what he does on there. I noticed when the New South Wales Sheffield Shield debate raged about whether he should be playing or not. He put in his bio, New South Wales Sheffield Shield cricketer.
Yeah. That got a mention in this room, oddly enough, with the bloke that usually sits in that seat. It was an interesting time, that one. But, Zamp's enjoying life over there, and I'll take that on board. You run the day or the day runs you. Speaking of running or walking or getting out of your crease, we'll end this episode with this. And another England cricketer can't stay in his crease. Tom Curran wandered out of his crease in the ILT20 match that he was involved with, completing a run for the final ball of the 18th over. Only problem was the ball was still coming in from the deep when he started to wander out. Now, you've seen the video, Tom. I've seen the video. A lot of our listeners would have seen the videos. The third umpire gave it out, but then Curran was called back. It was chaos. Some of the players that ran him out on that team weren't too happy. Tom obviously happy to take the reprieve. Out or not out?
Yeah, definitely out, I think. What is it about English blokes walking out of their crease?
I think everyone said that.
Well, like
it's hard not to.
Well, a few things. Firstly, when the ball was come in, like I think it was maybe Pollard or whoever's thrown it in, threw it in pretty quickly, so it wasn't mucking around.
It wasn't bounced in 3 times because the over's over.
No, it was not over at all. Like the ball has come to the keeper basically when he would have received it, and he was already out of his ground. Now I know he was walking and wasn't going to pinch a run, but the situation in the match too, like the game was on the line for sure. So look, I understand why they've called him back. I get all that. I'm not going to wade into that, but like just an absolute brain fade.
What are they teaching their kids over there? Are they teaching you can go anywhere you want, wander where you want, do what you want, behave like you want in the middle there? Just stay in your crease. It's like the quote that every Australian cricketer gave after that Bairstow incident. Stay in your crease. No problem.
Couldn't agree more. I actually think that was almost weirder than the Bairstow one because he could see the ball coming in.
I think it's more clearly out. Yep. I think everyone, there would only be a select few that would say not, as opposed to Bairstow. I could see the debate. I could see the grey area with the Bairstow one. This one, anyway.
Hilarious.
One for Baz to sort out. I don't know if he has sway in that regard. But Tom Decent, thank you, mate. What's on the radar for you with cricket at the moment?
I'll be blogging the series from back here. We've got Dan Brettig over there, and then we're getting married in 3 weeks. So, and then, funnily enough, doing a honeymoon in Sri Lanka.
After the test series. Do you get there for the 1 days? Miss.
I might, but I don't know if I could wrangle that going to a 1-dayer in Sri Lanka on the honeymoon.
That's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, we didn't think that one through, but yeah.
Yet we, as in you. How would it have gone down? We're going on our honeymoon and we're going to watch cricket for 10 days.
I don't know. I'm not sure. But
voice raised a bit there.
To be fair, I did try, and then about a month later, Mad said, "Why don't we do Sri Lanka for a honeymoon?" I just thought. So yeah, I will be in Sri Lanka next month, but maybe not for the reasons for work commitments.
Fair enough. Well, best of luck with the wedding, mate.
Thank you.
Well, not luck. Just have a great day. Luck shouldn't come into it. At this stage, luck shouldn't come into it. But have a great day, mate. Really appreciate you dropping in, and we'll get you back soon.
Thanks, Adam.
That was Willow Talk for now, but we'll be back later in the week with plenty more cricket chat. Yeah, thanks for watching the Willow Talk podcast on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't have to miss an episode wherever you are. And while you're at it, check out these videos up here. They're mostly good.